The daytime talk show The View was no stranger to heated debates, celebrity clashes, and controversial moments that would light up social media for days. But on this particular episode, the stakes were higher than ever. The producers had managed to book none other than Mel Gibson as a surprise guest, stirring anticipation and nerves among the hosts and audience alike. Mel Gibson, the iconic actor and filmmaker, was known for his roles in Braveheart, Lethal Weapon, and The Passion of the Christ. Though undeniably talented, Mel's career had been peppered with controversy, making his presence on The View an unpredictable wildcard. The producers were hoping for a ratings spike, but little did they know the day would turn into a fiery showdown that no one would forget. As the cameras rolled live, Whoopi Goldberg, The View's seasoned and outspoken moderator, opened the segment with her usual charisma. Known for her sharp wit and unapologetic opinions, Whoopi was ready to challenge Mel, particularly on some of his past statements and controversies that had recently resurfaced in the press. The moment Mel walked on set, the audience buzzed with excitement and a hint of tension. He smiled politely but carried the air of someone who had prepared for a battle, not just a chat. Whoopi wasted no time setting the tone. "So, Mel, you've had a career full of highs and lows. People remember your work, but many also remember some of your controversial moments. Care to explain what happened there?" she asked, her tone a mix of curiosity and challenge. Mel leaned forward, his eyes steady and calm. "I've made mistakes, Whoopi. I'm not perfect. But I've learned, I've grown. And I think people deserve a chance to see the full story, not just the headlines." That was when the conversation started heating up. Whoopi pressed harder, pushing Mel to confront his past more directly. "The thing is, Mel, some people feel you haven't done enough to make amends. How do you respond to that?" Mel's response was unexpected. Instead of deflecting or becoming defensive, he spoke with a candidness that surprised both the audience and the hosts. "It's true that I've been given a hard time. But the media often twists the truth. I've worked hard to rebuild my life and my career, and I'm here today to talk about what really matters, how we move forward and heal divisions." The audience was silent, hanging on his every word. The tension between Mel and Whoopi was palpable, but rather than escalating into a shouting match, the dialogue took on a surprising depth. The two began to discuss themes of forgiveness, redemption, and the power of honest conversations. Whoopi, known for her sharp tongue, found herself challenged to reconsider some of her own assumptions. And Mel, known for his tough exterior, showed a vulnerability few had seen before. Suddenly, a debate sparked over one of Mel's recent films that touched on sensitive social issues. Whoopi argued that the movie was tone-deaf, while Mel defended it passionately, insisting it was meant to provoke thought and dialogue rather than offend. The back and forth was electric. The audience leaned in, clapping, gasping, and occasionally laughing as the conversation bounced between tension and unexpected moments of humor. By the end of the segment, something remarkable had happened. What started as a potentially hostile encounter transformed into a moment of genuine exchange where two strong voices clashed but also connected. As the cameras cut away, the audience erupted in applause. Social media exploded instantly with clips of the showdown, and hashtags like #Mel vs. Whoopi and #The View Showdown trended worldwide. But this was only the beginning. The real story was about to unfold, and it would change the way people thought about celebrity debates forever. As the cameras returned to the live set after a quick commercial break, the atmosphere on The View was charged with an electricity that only a true showdown can create. The audience was buzzing, and the hosts exchanged glances. Even they could sense that this interview was not going to be business as usual. Whoopi, holding the momentum, leaned forward with a challenging smile. "Mel, you say your recent film was meant to spark dialogue, but some critics say it missed the mark, even hurt people. How do you reconcile artistic expression with social responsibility?" Mel's gaze sharpened, but instead of deflecting, he met her head-on. "Art isn't always comfortable, Whoopi. Sometimes it's meant to push boundaries and force us to confront uncomfortable truths. If we shy away from that, we stagnate. But I do listen. That's why I'm here to have this conversation." The exchange felt less like an argument and more like a meeting of minds, although neither was willing to concede easily. Then, in a move that stunned everyone, Mel shifted gears. "Whoopi, you've been vocal about social issues for years. I respect that. But tell me, what's the toughest part about being a voice for change in today's climate?" For a moment, Whoopi's trademark bravado softened. She glanced toward the audience, then back to Mel. "It's complicated. You want to push people to think differently, but you risk alienating them. Sometimes it feels like shouting into a void." Mel nodded thoughtfully. "I get that. And that's why these conversations matter, because real change happens when we listen, not just shout." Then came the moment that had everyone on the edge of their seats. Whoopi, known for her fearless honesty, surprised the audience by acknowledging, "I'll admit, Mel, I wasn't sure you had this kind of depth. You caught me off guard." The crowd erupted in cheers. The dynamic between the two had flipped from confrontation to respect. But this was the view, and the unexpected was always around the corner. Suddenly, Whoopi asked, "If you could say one thing to the people who've written you off, what would it be?" Mel took a deep breath, steady and sincere. "That people are more than their worst moments. That redemption isn't just a word, it's a process. And that we owe it to each other to try." As those words settled, the audience was visibly moved. Several people were wiping away tears, and a handful of the hosts exchanged nods of agreement, but then the debate took another turn. A caller from the audience was brought live on air. She challenged Mel on a personal issue related to his past behavior that was still fresh in the public memory. The tension skyrocketed instantly. Mel didn't flinch. "I'm here to face those questions, not hide. But I ask for fairness. To see the whole person, not just the mistakes." What followed was a respectful yet intense exchange, with Mel answering the questions with a surprising mix of humility and conviction. It was a moment of raw honesty that few in the spotlight ever show. After the call ended, the hosts reflected on the moment. Sunny Hostin remarked, "I have to say, I didn't expect this level of openness. It's not often we see someone really own their past like that on live TV." Joy Behar added, "And it's a reminder that people are complicated. It's easy to judge, harder to forgive." The conversation then broadened to larger themes: cancel culture, forgiveness, and how society deals with public figures who have made mistakes. Mel and Whoopi, once poised for a clash, had instead become catalysts for a deeper national conversation. As the segment wrapped, the producers knew they had captured something rare, not just ratings, but a meaningful dialogue that could resonate far beyond the studio walls. Social media blew up again, with viewers praising both Mel Gibson and Whoopi Goldberg for their honesty and courage. Clips of the heartfelt exchange went viral, trending for hours, but despite the applause and accolades, some critics still voiced skepticism, and that would set the stage for the explosive finale that was yet to come. The moment the View episode featuring Mel Gibson and Whoopi Goldberg ended, the nation's reaction was swift and polarized. Social media platforms exploded, TV commentators debated, and news outlets dissected every exchange between the two iconic figures. For some, the episode was a breath of fresh air, a genuine conversation about redemption, responsibility, and understanding. For others, it was a misstep, a moment where painful past actions were seemingly forgiven too easily. Within hours, hashtags like #MelGibsonRedeemed and #WhoopiMelMoment trended on Twitter, with thousands of users applauding the unexpected chemistry and respectful dialogue. Clips of Mel's candid admissions and Whoopi's openness were shared widely, sparking debates in living rooms, offices, and newsrooms across America, but the backlash was loud, too. Some critics argued that Mel's apologies were insufficient and that The View had given a platform to someone who had caused hurt without demanding full accountability. Others accused Whoopi of being too soft, suggesting she had betrayed her activist roots. In the midst of the chaos, Mel Gibson himself took to social media, posting a heartfelt message: "Thank you to everyone who watched today's conversation. I am not perfect, but I am committed to growth and learning. Let's keep the dialogue going." Meanwhile, Whoopi Goldberg found herself at the center of a storm as well. Supporters praised her courage to engage genuinely with a controversial figure, while detractors questioned her judgment. The pressure was intense, but Whoopi stayed firm. Behind the scenes at The View, producers were riding a roller coaster of excitement and stress. Ratings had skyrocketed to levels the show hadn't seen in years. Advertisers clamored to be part of the buzz, but the show's team braced for potential fallout. One memorable moment came when the show's executive producer called Mel and Whoopi separately the next day. "Oh Mel," she said, "you brought a side of yourself today that people didn't expect. That honesty, that's what changed the narrative." To Whoopi, she added, "You took a risk, and it paid off. You showed strength by listening and being willing to evolve." But not everyone was pleased. Certain advocacy groups issued statements condemning the show for giving Mel a platform without proper reckoning. They urged the public to remember the harm caused and to hold celebrities accountable. As the debate raged, a surprising development occurred. Some key Hollywood figures, actors, and directors known for their activism released public statements praising Mel's willingness to face the music and engage in meaningful dialogue. This split reaction only fueled the controversy further. The story had transcended a simple talk show appearance. It was now a cultural moment reflecting the complexities of forgiveness, accountability, and the possibility of change. Meanwhile, in interviews following the episode, Whoopi expressed her belief in the power of conversation. We can't grow if we only talk to people who agree with us. That's not how progress happens, she said. Mel, in turn, talked about how the experience changed him. Talking to Whoopi and being on that stage made me realize how much people want truth and connection even when it's hard. The story even reached political commentators, with some framing it as a metaphor for the nation's polarized state and the need for honest, sometimes uncomfortable conversations to bridge divides. Amid all the public noise, The View planned a follow-up episode to address the controversy head-on, inviting audience members and critics to join the discussion live. This next chapter promised even more fireworks, as emotions ran high and the nation's eyes were glued to the unfolding drama. The day of the follow-up episode on The View arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. The producers had promised a live audience panel filled with critics, supporters, and experts to dissect the fallout from Mel Gibson's controversial but candid appearance. It was a media event like no other, capturing America's fractured spirit. As the cameras rolled, Whoopi opened the segment with a calm yet determined voice. Last week was about conversation. Today, it's about listening and reckoning with the reactions we sparked. Mel Gibson reappeared, greeted by a mixture of applause and cautious murmurs. He took his seat with a humble nod and waited as the discussion began. The panel was a microcosm of America itself. Activists, entertainers, journalists, and everyday viewers filled the stage and the audience seats. The debate quickly ignited, with passionate voices on all sides. One panelist, a civil rights advocate, argued vehemently no amount of